Andy.
I'll just answer that briefly on my end, and Ira for OEM. We do see people in the affected areas. Some have had to raise their buildings before they can actually rebuild. That will help us repair. And in zones that have been constantly flooded, actually people are moving out. They're not even moving back into their buildings. But people are more aware that the storm of the century seems to be coming every year now. It's not the storm of the century, it's actually the storm of the year. So as New Yorkers, we thought we were immune to hurricanes, tornadoes, floods. That's not the case, and people are starting to realize that.
I would just add, I think we've seen in conversations with organizations more attention to mitigation, taking steps to prevent the same damage from occurring again. So recognizing where they were impacted last time, like you mentioned, raising electrical panels, moving resources to different floors. I think we saw many buildings, newer constructed buildings, that were feet away from the water that had barely a drop. They were dry in their basement because of the construction, and other buildings that were further in that were flooded. So I think there's better attention being paid to where buildings are, the maps, the mapping and the location, and the engineering that's done to begin with.
Yeah, and one last point. Buildings that suffered significant damage, especially to their central systems, you always try to take lemons and turn them into lemonade. And this became an opportunity for buildings to redesign and rebuild systems in a much more greener fashion and becoming more energy efficient and giving buildings the opportunity to reduce their carbon footprint, which in turn, they become greener. It actually becomes a money saver. It's a whole different session. I'm not going to get into that right now. But again, you look for opportunities, and that is certainly one of them. So we have about 10 minutes left. I certainly would like to have questions answered, and I think the best way to do this is we have a microphone here in the middle of the aisle. If we can just have people line up, ask questions, and we'll do our best to answer them, okay? So if somebody has a question, just please step to the microphone and...
Hello, I have a question about the guidebook. How can we receive those so we can pass it out to our residents?
Well, you can do one of two...
I'd like to let everyone know that our next Co-op and Condo seminar of the day will be starting at 12 noon.
Okay, so let me try to talk over that. There are two ways. Number one is you can ask your management company to produce it, or you can contact us, hire us, and we'll produce it for you.
For a new generation, combined heat and power in residential buildings, presented
Can you hear me?
by NYSERDA. That's at 12 noon, room 2, on America's Hall to the 3rd floor. And don't forget to stop by our free advice booths on the 3rd floor as well. We have property managers, accountants, attorneys, board operations, insurance. Come ask your questions, get your free advice.
Okay.
Hi, do you recommend that the Board of Directors form a committee and it be formed with the non-board members but natural occurring people who live in the building who people naturally go to for help?
There are many ways that you can organize a... hard to talk over someone else who's talking louder than you. But there are many ways to organize this. You really have to go with what works in your building and use the resources that your board and your management company have in order to formulate something. Thank you.
Cooperator room 2018 to claim your free gas gift basket.
It's not as easy as just closing the door to drown out the sound.
Touche. You may not be able to answer this, but there is a new local law, Local Law 98, that does require emergency preparedness plans for high-rise residentials. Its actual compliance date is next month. It was passed in November. So it hasn't been mentioned today. It's critically important. And it is, functionally a requirement by the DOB moving forward. So, planning becomes, you're shaking your head, Ira. So, I mean, you know what's on the boards here.
Sure. And sorry, I can't speak to the details of it right now, but the reality is that a lot of the attention that was been paid to commercial facilities is now bleeding over to the residential facilities.
Sure.
But again, communication is going to be key, making sure that you're posting the information in prominent spots so that the folks know what exactly is going to happen during an emergency. That's going to be the key element of that.
And Dan mentioned you also need special accommodations for the elderly and the
Yes.
disabled and whatnot, so, okay.
Yes, thank you.
thanks.
For those of us who didn't get a seat, are there any more of those checklists available?
Yes,
They're on the table. They're on the table outside. There's someone
Outside?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Great,
Yes.
thank you.
And
Okay.
if I could just add, I also have a number of the Ready New York guides that are available. I'll put them on the table outside as soon as this is done.
Hi, FirstService manages my building, and I have a question. When we got the notification for the window guards, there was a lot of other great information in there, and you gave it out to 194 apartments in the building. You didn't send copies for the staff. Our staff knows from nothing when it comes to helping us out when there's an emergency. We had a fire, and they were telling us, get out, get out, get out. And we didn't need to get out.
Well, part of it, there are a couple things. Number one is these documents that you received in January are a requirement by New York City to send out window guard notice, fire safety, and lead paint if your building, if it requires it. Those documents are apartment specific, and we are required by the law to maintain the log of information that comes back from that. The information about training your staff is a whole different process, okay? And the documents that we circulate to the residents of the building are not the same documents that go to the staff.
It shows the staircases, the exits, staircase A, staircase B, and I am of the opinion there's meat in there that the employees should be reading.
I agree.
You mentioned about the installment, I think it was, what was it? Sprinklers in the buildings. So where we suggested they be placed, are you recommending that they be placed on each floor or 2 on each floor? If there is a fire, that it would be some way that we could notify, we could be notified that
I mean,
they will automatically come on.
There's part of the code tells you how far they have to be separated from each other. It's part of the code. When a sprinkler system is required, it has to be installed according to the fire code. And, you know, there's spacing every so many feet that it covers so many square feet. So it's just not sporadically placed. But if it's not required, it still has to be installed according to the code.
Does that mean that it would be safer if you had one on each floor if you're living in, say, a 16-story building?
Well, you need more than one on each floor. You need it in apartments, you need it in hallway. There are different places where you install it, not just one on each floor. You have to have them in apartments and in rooms. If you're going to install a sprinkler system, it has to be installed very thoroughly and according to the code. Much more than one per floor. Much more than one per apartment.
Okay. Thank you.
I would like the fire commissioner to make a public service announcement on TV every night before the weather, because everyone looks at the weather, that you must close the door behind you when you leave the fire, to close the fire behind you, to lock it out. Because people leave the doors open and it causes a big smoke
Right.
problem.
That's part of this bulletin.
I
And we
know.
we do that during Fire Prevention Week, but we can do it more often.
That would be good.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for coming. You've been very informative. Commissioner Cassano, it's an honor to meet you. And
Can you just
question is for you.
turn that up, the microphone up, so it's closer to, there you
I
go.
just want to say thank you all for coming. It's been a pleasure hearing you all. You've been very informative. Commissioner Cassano, it's an honor to meet you, and my question's for you. Do you have multilingual speakers in your local firehouses, specifically for Southern Brooklyn, speaking Chinese and Russian?
If we have firefighters that speak languages that are easier for enabled, we will put them in those firehouses. But all of our fire safety education material comes in different languages. We have 12 different languages. If we have a Chinese-speaking firefighter, we would put them in an area where we would certainly be useful. And Russian, the same thing. We don't have many, but if we do, we would try to put them in areas where they will be useful.
Okay.
If
Are
I
you
could-
aware if there are speakers in the southern firehouses in Brooklyn?
I'm not
speak
sure.
those? Okay.
I'm not sure.
Thank you very much.
One of the things I would just add quickly is that we have a program called CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team, and we work very closely with the fire department to bring members of the community who can serve as translators and can work at the scene of an incident with the fire department. And they train our CERT members.
And we also use language line. If there is an emergency, we have a number that we call and we can use.
Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
Good afternoon. My question is, in the age of technology, what happens when the power grid is down and you can't tweet and you can't turn on the computer and your phone line is down? What is the next line? What is your contingency plan for communication to the city?
We would hope that there would be a backup generator in some of these buildings, if there are. If they're not,
I would say that one of the things we've seen over the past couple of years, especially during some of the power outages, we work with the police department and the fire department to use the PA systems in their cars. You might see a fire, an ambulance, or even a police car driving down the street, making announcements about what's going on in the area. Just bullhorns to make sure they have the information. But you brought up a good point, and I would just stress, the state of technology. A lot of people, they don't even know their family's phone numbers. It's just you hold down a button on your cell phone, and I'll tell you all. I don't know my wife's cell phone number, but I hold down number one, and that's what dials. But take a moment, write down on a piece of paper some of the key phone numbers, some of the key information that you need. Put it in your wallet so that you'll have it regardless of whether or not your battery dies or whatever that situation may be. That's a good opportunity to be prepared for that situation.
Okay, I think as part of all your communication that you're sending out, I think maybe you need to have a second line in terms of what happens when the technology is down.
as Ira said, we do go in the neighborhoods using bullhorns and the old-fashioned knocking on doors. Believe it or not.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to have to end here, but first I want to thank our panelists, Commissioner Cassano and Ira Tannenbaum. Thank you for coming today. And also thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for participating. I hope this was informative. Enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.
A final announcement, starting now at 12 o'clock.
How you been? Thank you.
Expo Condo Seminar.
Yeah, this is something that we do. We are doing it.
Presented by NICE.
My office is doing it.
On the third floor, America's Hall 2, in room 2.
This is one for